It's on. It's on.
Check. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Revere's September 23rd Ways and Means Committee. All rise to salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Argenzio.
Here.
Here. Councilor Kelly.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councilor Zambudo.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Silvestri.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. We have two items on tonight's agenda. The first is Council Order 24-174. This is a motion presented by Councilors Jaramillo and Councilor Guarino-Sawaya that the City Council order to a public hearing an ordinance further amending the revised ordinances of the City of Revere, establishing a program to divert waste from landfills and incinerators to offset waste disposal costs.
Okay. Counselor? Good evening.
Sorry about that. Good evening. Oh, let me just sign Wall Street. Woo.
Take your time.
Thank you, Chairman Silvestri, for putting this on the agenda for today. So the ordinance here in question is a composting pilot program that we are trying to do in the City of Revere. Sorry, 2 seconds. So the composting pilot program will do a few things. So for folks at home who haven't heard about composting, composting is a food scrap disposal program that turns the food scraps into a usable byproduct, usually for farming or for, usually for farming or for gardening, and it really enriches the soil. Composting has really important environmental effects in that all of our food scraps end up in a landfill. And as they decompose, they create gases that are 5 times more potent than methane gases and truly detrimental towards the environment. They create greenhouse emissions and effects that contribute to climate change. About 50% of all municipal waste around the country is compostable waste. So from homes, 50% of that is compostable waste. And of all waste, about 30% is compostable material. Composting is usually a lot more cost effective than, especially at scale, it's a lot more effective, cost efficient than regular waste program. And so this ordinance does a few things. First of all, it starts the pilot. It's an absolute 100% opt-in pilot. So for those of us watching at home, what that means is you get it only if you want it, okay? We also ask the mayor in this program to create an RFP. And in this RFP, we ask him to work with whoever, the people who bid on it, to do a few things. Create a sliding scale for the cost of this program. So if you decide to opt in, which again is 100% voluntary, we ask the company and the city to work together to figure out a sliding scale. So if you're a 3-digit household, maybe you pay a little bit, but if you're on a fixed income, you're on Social Security or anything like that, maybe you pay little to none. And we ask essentially the administration to create that sliding scale. Additional costs for this is, so I've been having some conversations with the administration, and they're already considering something like this, except the ordinance really structures it in a way so that we can structures it in a way so that we can do the RFK and then potentially scale up to a place that really makes sense. Right now, a few months ago, the City Council approved $25,000 of yearly mitigation money from our current waste disposal provider. And from my last conversation with Rick Viscay and my initial conversations with Rick Viscay, that money, they want to put it towards a compost program, so we can put it that way. Now, the ordinance does ask for a lot more than that, and I'm happy to talk numbers and have additional conversations about that. But that's because we also want the city to apply for federal and state granting. There's a lot of money out there. Honestly, we could probably fund a full-fledged city compost program if we applied for all the grant money that exists for composting. But we want to do baby steps. We want to really scale it up, make sure the residents feel comfortable with it. And so we want to make sure, but we do ask for 125. So the 25 that we have from the mitigation money, and then another 100 in hopes that the administration will apply for this grant funding. I know we just approved a sustainability manager, so hopefully they can work on that. And maybe we tier it so that when the money comes in, that's when we put it to play. But at the very least, get the program started with 25,000. Now, back of the number estimates on what this would cost per person or per household, right? I have a composting program right now in my home. I pay $44 a month for that. They come once a week and they retrieve my compost. They give me a fresh new bin. So if we had, I think it's 0 to 20 residents in the entire, or 0 to 50 residents in the entire city opt into this program, we could essentially cut that monthly cost per household to like $20. Of course, if we scale up more, we can cut it down more significantly and really make sure to get more bang for our buck. But the goal is really scaling up. I think that if we're going to see the cost benefits of at least balancing our waste disposal program, we need to get to scale. So this program also does allocate some of this money. This ordinance also allocates some of this money towards education campaign with our residents so that they can know about it. And that's an aggressive education campaign because, again, the more people we sign up, the cheaper it's going to be for the city for this pilot. And then we can scale that up if we wanted to expand it to the whole city. Some of the things and some concerns we've heard at the Climate and Sustainability Subcommittee meeting initially was how the program actually works. So let me dispel some myths. This would not be a program that lives under our DPW department, okay? We would be contracting out this work like we do with our waste disposal program, okay? The composting happens in a way. You put your food scraps from your kitchen into a bucket with a tight lid, right? And that gets picked up once a week. Now, I've never had a program. I never had an issue with a rodent or any other animals trying to get into my bucket. And again, it's just not there long enough for someone to try to get into it because by the time I have a lot of food in there, I'm getting a fresh new bucket at the end of the week, right, or once a week. Okay, this gets picked up at your homes once a week, and so there's that. The other piece that I heard, there were some concerns about water quality. Most of the people that do this work in Massachusetts are composting are doing their composting facilities off the ground. And they're turning their compost off the ground. We're not rural enough, and it doesn't make enough sense for people in the greater Boston region to compost in a way where like this would be going into farmland. Now, when the fertilizer ends up on the ground, it's usually like over concrete at some facility nearby. Usually there's some in Malden, there's some in Medford, there's some all over the city, the greater Boston region. So that's kind of the rundown, the skinny. I know it took a while, and thanks for being gracious to wait for me. But that's kind of the skinny on the composting ordinance that we have before us. And I'll take any questions.
Councilor Zamburo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm certainly going to support sending this to a public hearing. I have a lot of problems with it. I have a lot of problems with coming up with an extra 100,000. I don't even know that in the contract, the mayor has complete discretion over what to do with that 25,000 from the mitigation money from the waste carrier. So I'll never refuse sending something to a public hearing. I want to have a lot of discussion on this later, but not here at this meeting, at the subcommittee meeting, after it goes to a public hearing. I'm not against composting. I'm against jumping into something with both feet when we can start a pilot program through the mayor's office, and there's a lot of discussion about it, and we can have all those after the public hearing and when it goes into whatever committee it gets sent to. But I will support it going to a public hearing.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. If I may just say, this is a pilot program, and I think to scale this up to a major program, it'd be millions of dollars. And I hear you on the money front. I think, that's something we can discuss. Maybe we tier in how we bring in the extra 100. And the reason why I actually put a figure here, to your point, Councilor Zambudo, is that that I understand that we need to allocate the money from the mitigation. At least that's the way I've been told, although, the mayor's people see it differently, but I'd like it to be before us, before you, because right now I'm a private citizen, I promise.
Unfortunately, contracts dictate what we can do. I happen to be familiar with the waste contract because I've been dealing with Waste Zero people for years.
Sure.
And,
Independently of that, like I said, we got the mitigation money, and we want to at least run it by the council and,
Right.
and make
Great.
sure that happens that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Councilor Argenzio.
Thank you, Mr. I'm in full support of this. I mean, certainly for the environmental aspects alone, composting is a great thing. I know there's people in my neighborhood, like Councilor Jaramillo, that are already a part of this program because I see those buckets out and I've spoken with them. It's a pilot program. It's completely voluntary to opt in. I think if it does catch on, there is the potential for some savings, taking some trash out of our waste stream. So I'm very interested in it. I think it's the wave of the future. Of course, we have to look at the costs, but I certainly want to go to a public hearing and look into this more. But initially, I am in favor of it.
Thank you, Councilor Argenzio. And some of the things on the cost savings, of course, we have to scale up. One of the things this ordinance also does is we collect some data on exactly, or we ask the mayor to collect data on, if we scale this up based on the program of the amount of people that have opted in, how much money would we actually be saving per pound on waste disposal? And so that's another important part of this ordinance. I don't know, I haven't seen a plan from the mayor, and I think that we can get ahead of it as this council. I know we're forward-thinking folks, and get ahead of it and actually just have a plan, right? And that data piece is important for that.
Thank you. I think it seems like the will of the council to send this to a public hearing. Oh, sorry, Councilor McKenna.
I just have a concern, Mr. Chairman, about this because I think if we open it up to the city, I'm afraid that it's residents are going to compost in back of their yards, and it's a potential negative impact on people because it attracts unwanted pests, rats, and smells can be passed on to neighbors. So that's my only problem with this. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Angela Garino Swag. My idea, I was thinking about this a lot since we put in this motion, and I really want to start it in the schools. I really want the schools to start with the composting because not only can it be used as a science program for their class, they can actually use it as a course. I know that they started something like this in Salem, Massachusetts, and it's been working, and they've ended up getting a lot of money, a lot of funding, because the students began the composting program. So maybe we can add this to the motion, to the ordinance at some point, just to have the pilot program start within the school system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. Tom Skorowski, Chief of Planning and Community Development for the city. Since it was noted a few times what the mayor's office plans were to spend the funding that we currently have and the funding we're looking to get to create a pilot program on composting, I just wanted to touch on it just for a moment. So a few things that we've been working on since that funding was secured. First and foremost, we're trying to figure out exactly how the procurement would work. Because depending on which model we take, it could get kind of complicated. So, you know, for example, if we were to put some money towards purchasing starter kits for everyone that wanted to get involved in the program, it's much simpler from a procurement standpoint than subsidizing user costs or paying the company directly to do something like that. So we've been trying to figure out and look at all the other communities that have done it to make sure we're going to do it right. We've talked with all of the major providers of this service within the Boston metro area, both to get a sense of what the products are that the end product they create, where the waste goes, also from a cost standpoint. Some of them can be as much as $40 a month. Some can be as little as $20 on a sliding scale, going down to $12 a month if you've got enough people enrolled in the program. So we wanted to get a good sense of what was out there from that standpoint. And then we have been aggressively looking at opportunities to expand the impact beyond the 25,000 we have. We recently submitted a USDA grant application for $137, or I promise you it's more than that, $137,000, which would really take that pilot program to scale and allow us to subsidize low-income participants in the program and have a lot of the outreach and marketing work that Councilor Jaramillo had mentioned that I think has to be a part of this program. There's also an EPA grant that just got released on a rolling basis, which we'll also be applying for. And then through DEP, there's a program called SMRP, which, as the councilor had mentioned, we have a new sustainability manager, Abderzak Azib, who started a few months ago and has really been digging into this stuff. And he'll be meeting with DEP actually tomorrow to talk about what we can do to get enrolled in that program. So all of these together could help us get the necessary funding to take this pilot project to scale and make sure it's run successfully. I think it's a bit difficult for us to ascertain exactly what that amount would be on a yearly basis because of all these grants being kind of competitive, and the funding might change from one year to the next, which is why maybe a set number is a bit complicated. But we're doing everything within our power to take a program to scale and to accomplish a lot of the same objectives outlined here. I think it's devil's probably just in the details as to how we get there.
Thank you, Tom. Permission to speak from the chair? Thank you. I just, one question I think to clarify for everyone. So the city's not actually looking to get involved in the composting in itself. We're looking to find a third party to come in and do our composting for us, correct?
Exactly, and that's a good question.
No people will be doing it on their own in their yards as far as the council had concerns of people using the compost in their own yards? I mean,
Right. So some of the companies you could work with provide you an end product, which is the actual compost you'd spread on your lawn. But in terms of getting from A to Z, you know, I can speak as a user of composting services and the whole rodent aspect of it. I used to every week go out because I had a couple raccoons. They still live in my neighbor's house. It's a long story. I'll tell you sometime. But they would tear up all of our garbage bags, and I'd have just food laying all over my street. Since I started composting, I haven't had that problem because it's actually in a Loctite container. It's much better contained and secure. So for me, at least, and our neighbors, it's helped to avoid some of those issues.
yeah, I got to be honest. I took pictures just today of my trash barrels because today's trash day, and as I was bringing my barrels out, the rodents have managed to figure out the weakest part of the barrel. They lean over the side, they claw a hole into the barrel, and they get in and out of there. And composting or not, it doesn't matter if you use trash bags or not. Once you open that lid, there's trash everywhere, food. So anything to help curb that, I think is a good idea. So I think it's a positive, and we can only look into it and see how far it can go. So, again, I think it's the will of the body, so I think we should take it to roll, if else. Okay, so this will be a recommendation to send this to the committee to a public hearing.
Next item is Council Order 24-203, motion presented by Councilor Agenzio, that the City Council order to a public hearing an ordinance amending metered rates of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I brought this up, there aren't a lot of homes that fall into this category. There's probably 40 to 50. And I think that we should give a little bit of relief to these owner-occupied 4, 5, and 6 families. We're always talking about absentee landlords. They live out of the city, they live out of the state. People send their rent checks, and things happen at these homes, and we have a lot of problems with them. I think this is a little benefit to these residents that take care of their 4, 5, and 6 family homes. They're there, they watch out for it, and I think it ultimately benefits the city by having somebody living there, and they pay a residential tax rate, so why not a residential water rate? That was my reason for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kelly.
Thank you. I guess the issue that I have with this is collecting rents on a 6-family residential property pulls in a hefty amount of rent. And some would argue the profit on that rises to the level of a commercial business. So for that, I have trouble supporting this. However, that being said, it would be something that I could support if the owner occupant of these residential buildings were senior citizens over the age of 65. So I would like to offer that amendment to this motion so that the only time that this would be applicable is that if the building were owned by senior citizens over the age of 65. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to be voting to send this to a public hearing, I believe, correct? Again, I'm not going to block it from going to a public hearing. I have a lot of problems with this. I want to know the numbers. I want to know exactly how much money this is going to cost the city. I want it extrapolated out. We'll do that in committee, I'm sure, after it comes to a public hearing. But I'm not a hard no, but I'm a very tough yes. So it'll be the numbers that tell me what I'm going to do and how I'm going to vote. So I do support it going to a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be amenable to Councilor Kelly's suggestion that it goes to senior citizens 65 and older. I think that's the group that we most are concerned about. So I would be amenable to that amendment.
Thank you, Counselor. And Counselor.
Thank you, Councilor. Ira Novoselsky, 53 D Hone Street. I'd have to think about, I definitely would want to take care of our senior citizens, but I also would want to take care of anybody that's disabled that may have that issue. But just so you know, I can tell you out of this 4 family buildings, there's 34 in the city. There's in the 5 family homes, there's 10, and 6 family homes, there's 12. So it's a total of 56 total in the whole city. On my own particular issue, with 4 families, it costs about $2,000 extra a year would go from commercial to residential. And like Councilor Agenzio said, if these folks have residential tax rates, why are they paying commercial water rates. And just as a little history, back in 2018, when this was passed, the three-family number of the cutoff was just arbitrary, was just by the city auditor back then. And I talked to him, he says there was no rhyme or reason, we picked three. And the council didn't even look at the numbers as far as how it would affect the other residential rates. So, if he said if he had to come up and talk about it, he would, even though he doesn't work for the city anymore. But I can tell you that in Ward 1, we have 9 4-family, 1 5-family, and 3 6-family. In Ward 2, we have 14 4-family, 6 5-family, and 9 6-family. In Ward 3, there's 6 4-family, 1 5-family, and no 6 families. In Ward 4, there's 1 4-family and 1 5-family. In Ward 5, there's 4 4-family and 1 5-family. In Ward 6, there's 1 4-family and 1 5-family. So that's the breakdown from the different wards. Of course, Ward 2 is the most dense ward and the most built up as far as the number of multifamily homes. So that's why there's so many people in Ward 2. So one of the things that came up was, how would the city pay for it? Well, I know out of these, most of them are senior citizens, several are disabled, and some are under 60. So, and they live in this, they have to live in the city because they're on the city rolls. So I would ask that we send it to, the council send it to a public hearing, and we'll hear what the people have to say when it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And I believe it's the will of the council to move this to public hearing, so we will do with a positive, so send to the council positive motion. Thank you. And that will be the end of business for this night's Ways and Means Committee.